My husband won $500 million in lottery, kicked me out and married his mistress. He never believed what I did next. My name is Emma Collins, and I'm 36 years old. 10 years of marriage had taught me to love with patience, forgive often, and dream small, but dream anyway. My husband, Michael, and I lived in a 2-bedroom rented home just outside Portland, Oregon. He worked at a car dealership, and I managed the register at a local grocery store. Together, we earned just enough to survive. Some weeks, the word survive felt generous. We had our rituals. Sunday mornings meant burnt pancakes and lukewarm coffee. Friday nights meant sitting on the couch, wrapped in the same old blanket, watching reruns and laughing like we hadn't seen them a dozen times before. Michael used to look at me across that couch, smile and say, "One day, Em, life's gonna turn around for us." I believed him. I always did. One chilly October evening after a long shift at work, I stopped by a corner store for milk and bread. The cashier, a cheerful old man with kind eyes, held up a new set of lottery tickets. "Feeling lucky tonight, ma'am," he teased. I laughed and said, "At this point, I'd take divine intervention." I handed him a $5 bill and bought one ticket, mostly as a joke. When I got home, Michael was in the driveway cleaning his car. I dropped the grocery bag on the porch and waved the ticket at him. "Maybe this is how God plans to bless us," I said playfully. He chuckled, rolled his eyes and said, "Right, Emma, and maybe pigs will fly over the house tonight." I tossed the ticket onto the car's dashboard and went inside to make dinner. I didn't think about it again. Our struggles were constant but familiar. The fridge was rarely full, yet our hearts somehow were. I thought we were a team. But looking back, I realize I was the only one still fighting for us. Michael had grown restless lately, spending longer hours at work, dressing sharper, and scrolling endlessly on his phone, smiling at messages he'd never let me see. I brushed off the suspicion. Marriage, I told myself, needed trust like lungs needed air. The next few days came and went like any other. I worked double shifts to pay off our utility bill, while Michael complained that life had no excitement anymore. "We're stuck, Emma," he said one night. "Is this it? Just bills, work, and cheap dinners?" I smiled, trying to keep us afloat. Maybe our miracles just taking the scenic route. One Friday morning, rain poured relentlessly. I remember the smell of coffee and damp clothes. Michael left early, saying he had paperwork at the dealership. I didn't know that same morning on his car dashboard, the lottery ticket I'd forgotten had already begun rewriting our lives. It's strange how ordinary moments hide extraordinary consequences. That small slip of paper, ignored, smudged with my thumbprint, was about to pull everything we'd built apart. That night, I came home to find Michael unusually quiet. He barely touched dinner, his eyes darting everywhere but mine. I asked if something was wrong. He smiled too quickly. "Nah, just tired," he said. But I knew that look, like he was holding a secret so big it was burning through him. I went to bed first, curling under the blanket that suddenly felt too big for one person. I could hear him pacing in the living room, whispering on the phone. My heart wanted to believe he was planning something good. A surprise, maybe. My mind, though, whispered something colder. The next morning, he kissed my forehead before leaving, the way he used to when love was still effortless. I smiled half asleep, unaware that by nightfall, everything would start changing. Sometimes I replay that moment, the feel of his lips on my skin, the faint smell of his cologne, the way my sleepy self murmured, "Don't forget to buy coffee." He didn't reply. He just stood there for a second longer than usual, then walked out the door. If I'd known that was the last normal morning we'd ever share, I might have held his hand a little longer. I might have told him that no matter how hard things were, I still believed in us. But life doesn't warn you when it's about to break your heart. Just does. That forgotten ticket, sitting quietly in his car, was worth $500 million. $500 million. Enough to fix every broken thing in our lives. Enough to buy peace, security, comfort, maybe even happiness. But money can't buy loyalty. and it can't fill a heart already empty of love. If only I'd known that my $5 joke would turn into a $1 billion betrayal. If only I'd known that Michael Collins, the man I called my husband, would soon trade our vows for greed, our laughter for lies, and our love for the hollow company of another woman. Everything was about to change, and I was about to learn how deep betrayal could cut when it came wrapped in the face you trusted most. It was a Tuesday morning when I noticed something off about Michael. He came home unusually early, humming a song I hadn't heard in years. His face glowed, not with happiness but something wilder. Greed has a shine of its own. I just didn't recognize it yet. "Everything okay?" I asked, watching him pour himself a drink at 10 in the morning. He grinned and said, "Better than okay, Em. Life's about to change." His words sent a chill down my spine. For days after that he became secretive. He changed his phone password, stopped eating dinner with me, and began spending nights at work. He bought new clothes, expensive cologne, and started answering calls in the other room. Every time I asked what was going on, he'd brush me off with a half-smile. "You wouldn't understand, Emma," he'd say. I should have known. The signs were all there. The excitement, the distance, the lies building like bricks around my heart. Then, one night, I saw a news headline flash across the TV screen. "Oregon man claims $500 million Powerball jackpot." The name wasn't revealed yet, but the town mentioned was ours. I laughed nervously, turning toward Michael. "Wouldn't it be funny if it were you?" He froze for a split second, just long enough for the truth to flicker across his face. Then he forced a laugh. "Yeah, right. Like I'd be that lucky." That night he didn't come to bed. I woke at 2 a.m. to find him gone. His phone, his jacket, even his toothbrush, gone. My heart sank, but I told myself it was temporary. People don't just leave their marriages overnight, do they? By the next evening, he came home wearing a new suit and a smug smile. He sat across from me, his expression unreadable. "Emma," he said slowly, "we need to talk." My stomach turned. "About what?" "About us." He looked me dead in the eye. "I think we've outgrown each other. You hold me back. I can't keep living this small life with you." My voice broke. "What are you talking about? We've built everything together, Michael. You and me." He stood, pacing like a man trying to justify his own cowardice. "You don't get it, Emma. I want more, better things, better people." Tears filled my eyes. "Better people? You mean Sabrina?" The name slipped out before I could stop it. I'd seen her once, one of the sales reps at his dealership, always lingering too close, always laughing too loud. He didn't deny it. That was worse than any confession. "She understands ambition," he said. "She makes me feel alive." The silence between us screamed louder than any argument. My hands trembled as I whispered, "You won the lottery, didn't you?" He froze, eyes narrowing. "What makes you think that?" I stared at him, every nerve screaming for truth. "Because you're not the same man I married. You're acting like someone who just bought himself a new soul." He laughed bitterly. "You're delusional, Emma. You've always been dramatic." Then he walked out. 3 days later, I came home from work to find my belongings stacked on the porch. A neatly folded note sat on top. "Don't make this harder than it has to be. You'll be fine." He had changed the locks. Just like that, 10 years of love were reduced to boxes on a doorstep. I stood there in the cold, staring at our house, the one we'd dreamed of owning someday. Except now he'd already bought it outright. For himself. And for her. I slept on a friend's couch for weeks, numbed by disbelief. Every night I'd scroll through social media until I finally found them, Michael and Sabrina, dressed in designer clothes, toasting champagne beside a brand new mansion. The caption under the photo said, "New beginnings. Forever grateful." I wanted to hate him. I wanted to scream until the sky split open. But mostly I just felt empty. Like my heart had been scooped out and left to dry in the sun. My mother used to say, "Betrayal doesn't start with a knife, it starts with a whisper." She was right. It started with a whisper of greed, a secret he told himself he deserved. People often say money changes everything. What they never say is how it exposes who you really are. Michael had always dreamed of being more, but I never realized more meant without me. Weeks turned into months. The pain dulled, but the questions didn't. I replayed every memory, wondering how long he'd been planning it. I told myself I'd move on, find peace somehow. But fate has a funny way of circling back. Because buried in one of my old purses, under a pile of receipts and grocery lists, I would soon find the one thing that could change everything again. The one piece of paper that proved the jackpot he stole wasn't his to begin with. And this time I wasn't going to cry. I was going to fight. For months, I lived in a small rented apartment above a laundromat. The hum of the washing machines became my background music, drowning out the ache in my chest. Every morning I'd look at myself in the mirror whispering, "You'll be okay," though I barely believed it. Michael had moved on fast, too fast. Every magazine in the region had his smiling face plastered on it. Local man wins $500 million jackpot. He stood beside Sabrina, his new wife, in tailored suits and designer shoes. The man I'd built a life with now belonged to a different world, one built on lies and silk. I tried to keep going. I picked up extra shifts at work, packed lunches in brown paper bags, and ignored the whispers from people who recognized me. Pity was something I refused to wear. Yet at night, when the city quieted down, the silence grew bit deep. One rainy evening, I decided to clean my small apartment. Maybe I was trying to clear my head or just keep my hands busy so I wouldn't reach for my phone to check on him again. I pulled out an old handbag from the closet, one I hadn't touched since before the storm. Inside were crumpled receipts, loose change, and a faint scent of old perfume. That's when I saw it, the thin slip of paper, slightly torn at the edge. The lottery ticket receipt. My heart stopped. The date printed on it was the same day I'd come home with milk and bread, the same day I joked about God remembering us. I sank onto the floor, staring at it. My hands shook as I whispered, "Could it be?" The next morning I called the lottery office. My voice trembled. "Hi, I think there's been a mistake." The woman on the line, cheerful and polite, asked for the ticket purchase details. I gave her the store name, date and time. "Ma'am," she said after a brief pause, "can you hold for a moment?" That minute felt like an hour. My heart pounded so loudly I could hear it echoing in my ears. Then she came back. "We have CCTV footage from that location. A woman matching your description bought that ticket. The timestamp matches the winning one." I gripped the phone tighter. "You mean, it was my ticket?" "Yes, ma'am. You're the registered purchaser. Would you like to file a claim?" For a long moment I couldn't breathe. The world tilted. The very thing that destroyed me had been mine all along. Tears filled my eyes, not from sadness, but from the shock of divine irony. I hung up and sat there, shaking, laughter bubbling through the tears. He stole my ticket. My husband, the man who vowed to protect me, had robbed me of my future. I spent the next week gathering evidence. I went back to the store where I'd bought it. The old cashier recognized me instantly. "Hey, I remember you," he said, smiling. "You're the lady who joked about God's blessing that day." My throat tightened. He signed a statement confirming it. The more I uncovered, the stronger I became. The woman who cried in the dark was gone. In her place stood someone colder, sharper, someone who understood that justice sometimes needed quiet patience. Still, I didn't rush. I knew Michael's arrogance would be his undoing. He flaunted his wealth online, showing off yachts and vacations, interviews about hard work and destiny. I watched from my little apartment, sipping cheap coffee and smiling. Let him enjoy it. Every king forgets the ground he walks on, until the earth shifts. One night, while scrolling through the news, I saw an interview clip. The reporter asked him, "Michael, how does it feel to go from selling cars to owning them all?" He laughed, flashing that smug grin. It feels like I earned it. I've always believed I was destined for more. I turned off the TV. You didn't earn it, I whispered. I did. That night, I dreamed of walking into court in a simple dress, holding my receipt like a sword. Not shouting, not crying, just reclaiming what was mine. The next morning I made that dream real. I walked into the law firm of David Turner, one of the best attorneys in Portland. He listened quietly as I told my story, every word tasting like ash. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and said, "Mrs. Collins, you have one hell of a case. And I intend to win it." For the first time in months I felt something stir inside me, hope. Not the naive kind that waits for miracles, but the kind that builds them from the ashes of betrayal. When I stepped out of his office, the rain had stopped. The air smelled new. I stood there watching the sun push through the clouds and whispered to myself, "Game on, Michael." From that day, everything changed, quietly, strategically. I didn't announce my intentions or seek revenge through noise. I chose silence, the kind that unnerves people who know they deserve what's coming. My lawyer, David Turner, called it the calm before the storm. He was right. David and his team gathered every piece of evidence we needed. The store's CCTV footage showing me purchasing the ticket, the digital timestamp on my bank card transaction, the cashier's sign statement, and even a photo from my phone taken that same evening, a random selfie in front of the store. The background sign matched the CCTV perfectly. It was airtight. "Emma," David said one morning over coffee. "He doesn't know what's coming. Don't tip him off." I smiled faintly. "Oh, I won't. He'll find out the same way he found me, too late." Meanwhile, Michael's life played out on screens and magazines. Sabrina was glowing in every photo. Designer gowns, diamond rings, and headlines like Lottery Lovebirds plan global philanthropy tour. The irony almost made me laugh. He'd become a poster boy for generosity using money he'd stolen from his own wife. But the more I watched, the less I felt anger. What settled in me instead was focus. I no longer wanted revenge for my heart. I wanted justice for my name. Weeks passed as we built the case. I met with David every few days, reviewing documents, statements, and strategy. He was meticulous. "You've been quiet long enough," he said one evening. "It's time." The lawsuit was filed on a Thursday morning. It hit the news like lightning by Friday. Woman claims $500 million lottery was stolen by husband. My phone buzzed non-stop. Old friends, reporters, even distant relatives who'd forgotten I existed. I turned off my phone. I wasn't doing this for spectacle. I was doing this to breathe again. By Saturday, Michael called. I hadn't heard his voice in months. When I picked up, the line was silent for a while before he spoke. "Emma," he said softly, "what the hell are you doing?" I took a deep breath. "Taking back what's mine." He scoffed. "You've lost your mind. You can't win this." "Then I guess I'll lose gracefully in court." There was a pause, then a low chuckle. "You really think anyone will believe you?" I smiled even though he couldn't see it. "They don't need to believe me, Michael. They just need to see the evidence." He hung up. That night, I imagined him pacing in his mansion, the same way I once did in our tiny living room. But unlike me, he wasn't broken. He was scared. Greed always fears exposure. The next few weeks were a blur of legal motions and media buzz. Reporters parked outside my building. David shielded me from most of it. "They'll try to paint you as bitter," he warned. "Stay composed." I did. I went to work as usual, kept my head down, and ignored the noise. But inside I was ready. I'd already lost everything once. There was nothing left to fear. When the first pre-trial hearing came, I walked into the courthouse in a navy blue suit. Modest, sharp, and symbolic. Sabrina arrived draped in designer silk, flashing cameras her practiced smile. Michael stood beside her, jaw tight. His eyes found mine for a second, and I saw it, the crack in his confidence. He leaned toward his lawyer, whispering something, but I didn't care. I wasn't there to argue. I was there to reclaim what I'd earned. During the proceedings, David presented the evidence with calm precision. The judge's expression shifted from curiosity to stern disbelief. "Mrs. Collins," she asked, "are you stating under oath that your husband claimed the winnings from your purchase ticket without your knowledge or consent?" "Yes, Your Honor," I said firmly. "He did." Michael's attorney objected, claiming there was no proof of ownership. That's when David presented the receipts, the video footage, and the cashier's sworn statement. The courtroom fell silent. Even Sabrina stopped smiling. Afterward, outside the courthouse, a reporter asked how I felt facing my ex-husband. I replied simply, "I feel like I'm finally being heard." That night, as I sat by my apartment window, watching the city lights flicker, I thought about the strange symmetry of it all. He had taken everything from me in silence. Now, silence was how I was taking it back. David called the next morning. "They want to settle," he said. I laughed softly. "No. He took it publicly, he'll lose it publicly." The final trial date was set. The air felt charged, heavy with a kind of justice that had waited patiently. I wasn't nervous anymore. I'd walked through heartbreak, humiliation, and solitude. Now I was walking toward truth. And deep down I knew something Michael didn't. When you strip a person of everything, love, home, dignity, you leave them with one thing that can move mountains. Resolve. The day of the final hearing felt like the conclusion of a long, exhausting movie, except I was the protagonist, not just watching but living every scene. My palms were dry, not from fear, but from finality. This was it. No more waiting, no more wondering. The courthouse was packed. Reporters, curious onlookers, even people who once knew us. They whispered as I walked past. I could almost hear them stitching narratives, wondering how an ordinary woman like me ended up challenging a millionaire. Michael arrived late, as usual, with Sabrina clinging to his arm like a designer accessory. He wore an expensive gray suit, tailored to perfection, but his eyes betrayed him, restless, uncertain. The cameras loved them and they played their part. The lottery couple. But today that fairy tale was about to dissolve. Inside, Judge Eleanor Brooks presided, firm and poised. She had a reputation for being no-nonsense. David stood beside me, calm as a mountain. "Just breathe," he whispered. The hearing began. Michael's attorney made his opening argument, a rehearsed piece about love gone sour, about a jealous ex-wife trying to destroy a man's success. I didn't react. The judge didn't either. Then David stood. "Your Honor," he began, "this case is not about a broken marriage. It's about ownership, honesty, and theft. We will show that the lottery ticket in question was purchased by Mrs. Emma Collins and wrongfully claimed by her husband without consent." He presented the evidence one by one. The store CCTV footage showing me handing cash to the cashier, the time-stamped receipt matching my bank transaction, the cashier's affidavit, and finally, the digital records from the lottery office confirming that the claim was made under Michael's name 2 days after my purchase. As the footage played on the courtroom screen, silence fell. It showed me in my jeans and hoodie, smiling faintly as I collected my change. Then, 2 days later, it showed Michael entering the lottery office, holding the same ticket. I watched his expression crumble. Sabrina shifted uneasily, glancing at him. For the first time, her perfectly painted smile vanished. "Mr. Collins," Judge Brooks said, her tone slicing through the quiet, "do you have any proof that this ticket was yours?" Michael's lawyer stammered. "Your Honor, while the footage is compelling, it doesn't necessarily prove that Mr. Collins didn't purchase the ticket through his wife." "Objection," David interjected. "The claim form submitted by Mr. Collins lists him as the sole purchaser. That's fraud." The judge nodded. Sustained. Michael tried to speak. "Your Honor, I was the one driving the car when I found the ticket. I thought it was mine." I looked straight at him and said quietly, "You knew it wasn't." The judge's gaze hardened. "Mr. Collins, Ignorance is not a defense when deceit is evident. The evidence clearly shows Mrs. Collins is the rightful owner of the winning ticket. A gasp rippled through the courtroom. Cameras clicked. Reporters scribbled. Judge Brooks continued. Effective immediately, all assets derived from the fraudulent claim of this lottery prize are to be transferred to Mrs. Emma Collins. Mr. Collins, you are further ordered to relinquish all related financial holdings within 30 days. The sound that escaped Sabrina was almost comical, a sharp inhale followed by an audible, "What?" She turned to Michael, hissing something under her breath, then stood abruptly and stormed out. Michael remained frozen. His lawyer tried to steady him, but he looked lost, hollowed out. David placed a hand on my shoulder. "You did it." I exhaled, tears welling up despite my composure. "No," I said softly. "Justice did." As we stepped outside, the media swarmed. Questions flew like arrows. "Emma, how do you feel? What will you do with the money? Do you forgive him?" I paused, looked at the flashing cameras and said, "I feel grateful. I'm not here to destroy anyone. I just wanted the truth to stand." Later that evening, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at the quiet city skyline. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Michael, please. Can we talk?" I didn't reply. There were no words left to exchange. He had gambled love for greed and lost everything. When I finally turned off my phone, I thought of the girl I'd been, the one who once bought a lottery ticket as a joke, hoping life might change. Did. But not because of luck. Because I learned that silence, when paired with patience, can roar louder than rage. That night, I slept peacefully for the first time in months. The storm had passed, and I was still standing. 3 months after the verdict, I drove past the same supermarket where I used to shop on credit, only this time, the building bore my name in bold letters. Collins Market and Deli. It wasn't about flaunting wealth. It was about creating something from the ashes. Owning it gave me a deep sense of peace. I hired single mothers, women recovering from financial ruin, and widows who'd been abandoned like I once was. My story had gone viral. People called me the quiet winner. At first, I felt shy about the attention, but then I realized my journey wasn't just mine anymore. It was for every woman who'd ever been told she couldn't rise again. The media followed Michael's downfall relentlessly. His lavish lifestyle crumbled faster than anyone could have imagined. Sabrina drained the joint account before vanishing to Europe. The luxury cars were repossessed. The mansion was sold to pay legal costs, and his so-called friends evaporated overnight. One chilly afternoon in December, I stopped by a cafe downtown. As I sipped my coffee, I saw something, or rather someone, across the street that froze me mid-sip. Michael. He was sitting on a cold bench near a convenience store, a paper cup at his feet, beard unkempt, eyes sunken. For a moment, I thought it couldn't be him. But when he lifted his head, our eyes met. I walked over slowly, every step echoing the memory of what he'd done, and how far I'd come. "Emma," he said weakly, voice cracking. "Is it really you?" He nodded. "It's me." He tried to smile, but it twisted into something sad. "You look different." "I should," I said softly. "I'm free." He looked down. "I've lost everything." "I know," I replied quietly. "You lost more than money, Michael. You lost integrity. You lost peace." He swallowed hard. "I was stupid. I thought the money would make everything better." "It never does," I said. For a long, still moment, neither of us spoke. The air smelled faintly of roasted chestnuts from a nearby vendor. Life went on around us. Cars passing, laughter spilling from a bar, but we were two ghosts in that moment, haunted by what we used to be. I reached into my purse and pulled out a few crisp bills. He looked at them, then at me. "I don't want your pity," he muttered. "It's not pity," I said. "It's closure." I placed the money in his paper cup and stood there a second longer before turning to leave. Behind me he whispered, I'm sorry, Emma. I paused but didn't turn around. So am I said, my voice barely above the wind. That was the last time I saw him. Months later, my supermarket expanded to 3 locations. I created a foundation for women starting over after betrayal and financial abuse. I called it the Second Chance Fund. We helped hundreds of women rebuild their lives. New skills, small businesses, safe housing. One evening, during an interview for a talk show, the host asked, "What drives you, Emma?" I smiled and said, "The understanding that life can strip everything from you in a single moment, but it can also hand it all back if you don't lose yourself." The audience applauded. But in that moment, I wasn't thinking about fame or success. I was thinking about the version of me who once stood in front of a locked door, crying because the man she loved had thrown her out. That woman was gone. In her place stood someone who understood that real wealth isn't found in numbers, it's found in resilience. After the show, I sat alone backstage, the lights dimmed, the noise fading. I whispered a quiet prayer, not for revenge or validation, but for peace. Michael had chosen greed. I had chosen grace. And grace, I learned, always wins in the end. As I drove home that night, the city lights blurred softly through my windshield. I turned up the radio and smiled. The song playing was, "Don't Stop Believin'." Fitting, I thought. Because I didn't. Greed blinds faster than poverty. Betray love for wealth, and you'll lose both. Patience and integrity will always win in time.